All right, today we're talking about Clarissa Shields because apparently the drama surrounding her never takes a day off, aka Pap's alleged mistress, aka Pap's entanglement, aka Pap's pick-me, aka Pap's side chick, or as Chris Cyborg might put it, duck hunting season is officially open. When I tell you Clarissa Shields has become a whole storyline for all the wrong reasons, I mean the chaos seems endless, with daily shenanigans, daily stunts and performances, daily narratives, daily conspiracies, and constantly more personal details being dragged into the spotlight about her alleged involvement with a married man. But today, we're actually here for a completely different reason, and this one takes us straight into the world of boxing. So I want to give a shout out to Punch Drunk Boxing because he put together a really interesting video the other day. And when I was clipping my own footage for the video I did about Pap constantly appearing in Clarissa's videos, I had the exact same reaction of confusion. This was supposed to be a press conference focused on Clarissa, right? She had her niece and nephew there, yet Pap kept moving his chair closer and closer and closer just to get himself into the camera frame. And later, he was even answering questions and involving himself in the conversation. And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, you don't suddenly become a boxing expert just because you're involved with a boxer. Being romantically connected to somebody in the sport doesn't automatically make you an authority on boxing. And just because you and your wife Remy Ma have attended multiple boxing events from ringside doesn't suddenly make you a boxing expert either. But something immediately caught my attention within the first couple of minutes of that press conference, and that was Clarissa still wearing her boxing gloves. Now, based on all the fights and press conferences I've watched over the years, whether they involved male or female fighters, I honestly don't remember seeing a boxer sitting at a press conference still wearing their actual fight gloves, and naturally, that made me raise an eyebrow. Then there was another strange moment when Clarissa asked her niece to open her water bottle and help her drink from it, which just added another unusual layer to everything happening in that room. Meanwhile, when Clarissa Shields returned Kaye Scott's belts in the dressing room, Kaye Scott had already taken her gloves off. Now, Punch Drunk Boxing made an important point when discussing what people have started calling Glovegate, because according to his experience being around this environment, once a fight ends, the gloves are supposed to be handed over to the appropriate officials so they can follow the required inspection process. There's a protocol, there's a procedure, and there are specific steps that are supposed to happen after the fight, which is exactly why Clarissa still having those gloves on became something people started questioning. Something about the situation just felt off, like, hold on, what exactly is going on here? And honestly, that was the energy I was getting from it too. Because with all the activity happening during that press conference, between Pap seemingly fighting for camera attention, Clarissa's niece and nephew moving around, and Clarissa herself struggling to stay focused while answering questions and repeatedly asking people to repeat themselves, there was already enough distraction in the room. Then you had Pap continuously playing musical chairs, moving closer, switching seats, scooting around, and doing everything possible to stay involved, while Clarissa was standing there with those boxing gloves still on, making you wonder when exactly
Are those gloves coming off? Seriously, when are we taking the gloves off? That was the question hanging over the entire situation. And that's why I originally wanted to make a separate video about this, because Kaye Scott eventually spoke out after people began questioning the authenticity of the fight. And there has been significant backlash surrounding the matchup, particularly from people within the boxing community. Some viewers felt the fight didn't look legitimate, others believed their time had been wasted, and some questioned why Kaye Scott was even placed in the ring with Clarissa in the first place, basically describing the whole thing as phony baloney. Kaye Scott then took to Instagram to address the backlash, explaining that she appreciated the support and love people had been showing her, while also acknowledging that she was receiving plenty of negative comments and criticism. Her basic message was that she made the decision to accept the fight, that there was nothing rigged about the matchup, and that the outcome simply wasn't what they had hoped for, but she was still trying to move forward and essentially saying everything was going to be Gucci, everything was going to be fine, right? At least, that was the message at first, because I think something may have changed behind the scenes. And the reason I say that is because those posts are no longer sitting on her page, and that disappearance is hard to ignore. It's almost like you blinked and missed the entire thing, because the statements were there, people were talking about them, and then suddenly they were gone. So naturally, that makes me wonder whether the deleted posts could somehow be connected to the alleged suspension, although that part remains speculation. But while all of that was unfolding, people were also taking a much closer look at the actual sequence of events inside the fight. And once again, Punch Drunk Boxing brought up some interesting points in his breakdown. He went through what happened immediately before the knockout was officially called, examined the mechanics of how a knockout is supposed to happen, and started looking closely at the number of punches being thrown, the way Clarissa was landing them, her combinations, and the overall sequence of everything that happened inside the ring. And honestly, the entire situation just felt strange because everything surrounding this fight seemed unusually quiet and disconnected from the level of attention you would expect. There was actually more buzz around the Baddies fight and Big Lex's matchup, and even Ray J was getting attention because his sister Brandy was there in the building. You know what I mean? When it came to Clarissa, though, I almost felt like some of these celebrities were mainly there for the picture, the social media post, and the clout. It felt more like I was here, I was in the building, rather than genuine excitement for the actual boxing event. Because, let's be real, Atlanta has something happening practically every single night. Whether it's a concert, a game, a party, or some other major event, there is always something going on in Atlanta, so getting celebrities to show up for a photo opportunity isn't exactly difficult. And then you have Floyd Mayweather who, let's be honest, seems willing to show up when the check clears. But where has that same energy been for Clarissa Shields' previous fights? So I just wanted to give you guys that context before we get into the real tea. Now, let's start with Kaye Scott, because this is where things get very interesting. According to the information being circulated, Kaye Scott, the opponent who supposedly lost to Clarissa Shields this past Saturday at State Farm Arena, is listed as suspended by the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission until September 29, 2026. Let me repeat that because this is important. Kaye Scott, Clarissa Shields' opponent from that Saturday night matchup, is reportedly listed as suspended by the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission until 9/29/2026, which is September 29, 2026. Now let's move over to the other suspension because Clarissa Shields is reportedly listed as suspended by the same Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission until August 22, 2026. Again, according to the information being shown, Clarissa Shields is listed as suspended by the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission until August 22, 2026. You guys, that is what the listing says for Clarissa Shields, and it is being presented as information from Boxing.com. If I'm lying, I'm flying, because I'm simply showing you guys what is being reported. So what exactly does all of this mean? I did a quick search to understand the basic rules, and here's what I found. A boxing suspension issued by the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission is an official restriction that can prevent a licensed fighter from participating in professional competition, either temporarily or for an extended period, usually for medical protection or regulatory reasons. There are different types of suspensions, and medical suspensions can be automatically issued after a knockout, technical knockout, or serious injury, so the fighter has time to recover physically and neurologically. They can also happen when a boxer does not complete required medical or neurological examinations before a fight. Then there are disciplinary suspensions, which can be issued because of violations either inside or outside the ring, including failed pre-fight or post-fight drug tests, unsportsmanlike behavior, mistreatment of officials, or violations connected to the bout agreement. So what does that actually mean for a fighter? Basically, no sanctioned fighting in Georgia while the suspension remains active, meaning the boxer cannot legally participate in professional boxing or regulated combat sport exhibitions under the state's jurisdiction. And there can also be interstate consequences, because suspensions may be recorded through national combat sports systems under standards used by athletic commissions, meaning another state may also recognize the restriction instead of allowing the fighter to simply travel somewhere else and compete. As for getting a suspension lifted, a medical suspension can require the fighter to complete the required waiting period and receive medical clearance from an appropriately licensed physician or commissioned medical panel. A disciplinary suspension can involve completing fines, hearings, or other requirements ordered by the commission. Why do I keep saying suspicion instead of suspension? Because clearly I have some questions, but ultimately we're going to have to wait and see what happens, because this was simply the information I found from a quick search, and I'm not claiming to know the exact reason behind either suspension. I don't know whether this has anything to do with what people are calling Glovegate, and I don't know whether Kaye Scott's previous medical history played any role in this. Was she properly medically cleared before the fight? Were all the required protocols followed? Did everything happen exactly the way it was supposed to? Or did Clarissa Shields' post-fight behavior and all the controversy online cause people to start looking at the fight more closely? It's also possible that these are temporary suspensions while officials review certain aspects of the matchup, and if everything checks out, those restrictions could eventually be lifted. That's why I'm extremely curious to see how long this actually lasts, and whether either suspension could potentially be extended, especially Clarissa's, because right now her listing ends on the 22nd. But if officials are conducting some kind of review or investigation, could that date eventually change? That is the part we simply don't know yet. And when it comes to Kaye Scott, I'm especially curious about why her reported suspension is significantly longer than Clarissa's, because that raises another obvious question. What exactly does that difference mean? Could hers be primarily medical, especially considering that she suffered an apparent hematoma very early in the fight? Seeing that kind of swelling develop that quickly was definitely concerning. So could the commission simply be taking extra precautions, or are there other factors they are reviewing? Because then you have another detail that makes people wonder, why did Kaye Scott delete those posts where she was defending the fight, saying she liked Clarissa Shields, insisting nothing had been tampered with, and making it clear that she believed everything was legitimate? I should have taken screenshots when I first saw them, and I honestly thought I had, but now I'm sitting here wondering if I actually saved them. Wait, hold on, because I actually do have them. I found the screenshots, you guys. Give me 1 second, because this is exactly what Kaye Scott posted on Instagram. She basically said people were acting crazy, describing the mixture of DMs she had received, while also thanking the many people who congratulated her despite the loss and showing appreciation for those supporters. But she also addressed the people claiming the fight was fixed or that she didn't even try, responding that she was simply beaten by the better boxer. She also pushed back against people who were angry that she had been in the ring with Clarissa or claimed she didn't belong there, basically telling them to get lost and saying jealousy is a curse. Kaye Scott made it clear that she believed she had earned her opportunity, stepped into the ring, gave it everything she had, and ultimately came up short against someone she described as the best fighter in the world. She also emphasized that most of the reaction had actually been positive, saying she couldn't understand why random people were taking time out of their day to send her angry direct messages and basically telling them to get a life. But then she brought up something that really puts the whole experience into perspective. She got to do what she loves in front of more than 16,000 people, enjoyed herself, and even walked away with a payday. So from her perspective, she wasn't walking away as the loser because she still got to live out a major career moment. And that was Kaye Scott's side of the story through Instagram. But now I'm extremely curious to see how this entire situation develops because there are still too many unanswered questions. I want to know what happens next, whether these suspensions remain temporary, whether anything gets officially explained, and whether we eventually learn why the two fighters received such different suspension periods. And Kaye Scott was already posting herself exploring Laguna Beach, so for now she appears to be enjoying some downtime while all of this continues developing. We'll definitely keep an eye on it, and if new information comes out, we'll come back with the updates.
At this point, I haven't seen major outlets like ESPN or some of the bigger sports publications heavily reporting on these specific suspension details. But Clarissa Shields, meanwhile, remains extremely active across social media. She's everywhere online, talking her talk and creating even more conversation. And that entire situation deserves its own separate video, because at this point, the way she is celebrating this so-called victory makes you wonder whether the actual win was ever the main objective. Because if you ask me, it seems like what she really wanted was celebrity attention, social media clout, and the spotlight, and she definitely got all three. Now she's right back online doing the absolute most, making it very obvious who she feels pressed by and who still has her attention, instead of simply enjoying the victory privately and moving on with her life.